There we go. Um, so again, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, February 13th. I think we're day 13, 12 or 13 in this 30-day legislative session. We are excited to have a great group with us this morning for our Friday Capitol update. Um, I don't want to belabor the point and take too much time, but just wanted to say again, thank you to everybody that joined us last week for our second annual Chamber Day at the Capitol. It was a great success, and hope that you all enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed having you all here in Montgomery. Um, if you have not filled out your survey, please do. If you haven't gotten it, it's probably in your spam. But so please fill that out because we are already making plans for the third annual next year. So with that, we have our friends and neighbors from BCA here to give us an update as well of what's happening on their side and what is happening. But before we get to them, we have a special guest joining us, a longtime friend of CCAA, Mark Colson with Alabama Trucking Association, who's been on just about every side of this call. But we are certainly glad to have Mark with us to talk about the priorities that Alabama Trucking is working on, but then also how you, as local chambers, can engage with their association. A lot of their work. We all have truckers that live in our communities. We all have roads within our community that our trucking friends are using. So just wanted to open it up and welcome Mark to kind of just give us an update on what they're working on this session, and then also to let us know if there's any way that we can help them in their work. So, Mark, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and then we'll hear from, we'll let Scott and Caroline just do rock, paper, scissors on who's going to give us the update. So, Mark?
Well, thank you, Paige, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you on a Friday morning. For those of you I've not had a chance to meet, I look forward to meeting you. And just for those of you who don't know, when I was an intern in college, my one of my internships was to work for the Chamber of Commerce Association of Alabama, and literally travel the state to. I'm looking at the names here of people I do know, and come to almost every one of your communities and visit almost every chamber in the state, and continue to that, post college, as I worked with the Business Council of Alabama for 13 years. And this relationship with chambers of commerce is important. And I still feel like I'm part of the family, and I appreciate y'all treating us like we're part of the family. I want to just also comment on the work that you do, no matter if you see Maury Yancey in Marshall County, or different enclaves of this state. You're a powerful voice in your community. Having been to most of those communities and walked into a breakfast at 7 a.m. in Scottsboro, Alabama, and there's 500 people at a breakfast at 7:30 in Scottsboro. There's no other organization that can do that in those communities. Linda Lewis in Jasper, I've spoken at her 7 a.m. breakfast with 350 people. It's so impressive to me. It's so powerful. Y'all are the voices of your communities, and we appreciate what each of you do. The Alabama Trucking Association has been around since 1938, proudly representing interstate motor carrier fleets within the state, on down to independent truckers and allied members, which, all the vendors and allied community that support the trucking industry. In Alabama, we employ about 136,000 individuals. That's 1 in 13 jobs in the state are in the transportation and trucking space. 86% of your communities depend 100% on trucking for all of your inbound and outbound goods, raw materials, finished goods, final delivery, et cetera. So we're very proud of this, of trucking, and the role it plays in our supply chain in every community in the state. We're a top 10 trucking state in America, based on different metrics of job employment numbers, economic impact, et cetera, a number of fleets that are domiciled here, family-owned companies. And those are who really makes up our membership. We don't have a lot of mega carriers domiciled in the state of Alabama, like some states like Arkansas and Iowa, and some of the Midwest states. We have a healthy number, what I call medium-sized trucking companies, between 50 trucks to 500 trucks. The challenge I would share with you all, and you know this in your community, in trucking, over the past 3 years, going into the fourth year, we've been in a freight recession. coming out of 2002 when there was a surge when COVID rebounded. And since that time, companies have struggled. We've had a number of family-owned businesses in Alabama and especially in the southern region file for bankruptcy, mergers and acquisitions. Just a really difficult time for the trucking industry. Surviving is thriving right now in our industry, both in Alabama and around the country. And so we, as an association, have been really working hard to try to meet the needs of our members and walk with them through this difficult time, as I know you do with members of yours in your community. Um, I will just mention a couple of priorities in a moment. One of the things in that period of time that we've seen, and there's been a lot of news stories on this nationally, and it is kind of caught up in the national politics, is illegal operators in trucking, what we call bad actors. You've seen stories about there was an accident last week in Indiana that involved illegal drivers from foreign drivers that killed four Amish, an Amish family. Many of you may have seen the media on that. Unfortunately, those are trends we've seen over the last several years. And until the Trump administration came in January of last year, there really had not been a focus on what allowed bad actors to get into our business. And they're not all foreign, by the way. That's just what makes the headlines. But in Alabama, if anybody's from Thomasville on here, we had a terrible accident in 2025 in Thomasville, Alabama, where two Ukrainian drivers who should have never been issued a CDL, they were issued a CDL in Pennsylvania. They were working for what we call a chameleon carrier, like a ghost company that, if they have a bad accident, they shut down and start up another company out of Chicago, out of Illinois. And they killed two innocent people, a football coach and a young girl in Thomasville in the middle of the day. And it was just one of those unfortunate, tragic things that should have never occurred. So our industry nationwide responded to this crisis of bad actors with a comprehensive plan that I was a part of helping put together called Trucking Resurgence. It's called the Fight for Fairness and Safety. You can go to truckingresurgence.com. It lays out a 7-point plan to address the systematic ways bad actors get involved in our business. And the way that translates to you is cargo theft has become an extremely prominent, almost $1 trillion problem in this country that affects every community, every business interest, retailers, anybody in the supply chain. And there's a lot of focus. You'll see that as a buzzword, especially coming out of Congress. There's a package of bills moving through Congress. But the trucking is really kind of the weak link in the cargo theft networks. And there's lots of different schemes that cargo thieves use to steal things. Guy Fieri, if you've not seen the tequila, how his tequila got stolen, that was the trucking industry. That was a weak link in the supply chain of trucking. So our 7-point plan would address many of the big challenges that the entire supply chain feels from cargo theft, which is a huge problem in this country and a national security threat, by the way. Um, how that translates to Alabama, we and law enforcement here have been collaborating. That is one of our pillars in trucking is three things really. Highway safety is number one. We have a tremendous impact and we've had tremendous data on our ability to drive down trucking accidents, fatalities involved in trucking accidents. And we actually are a national leader in driving those numbers down. And that's, one is too many. And we were on a trend prior to 2020 that was not good for Alabama. So that's a tremendous success. But highway safety is always number one. So with our law enforcement partners, when we're talking about the bad actors, a couple of things have changed. The Trump administration issued some executive orders for enforcing things that were not being enforced, existing laws. One was English language proficiency. You hear a lot about English-only driver's licenses, but in trucking since 1937, you had to be able to proficiently communicate and read road signs to get your CDL. And unfortunately, during the Obama administration, they issued an enforcement edict that said that law enforcement should not put people out of service in commercial trucking if they fail that. Then you had these flood of migrant workers and immigrants and refugees that came into the country in the Biden administration. Many states, not Alabama, but many states issued them what they call non-domiciled CDLs. So we had a flood of like roughly 500,000 people some people call it labor dumping. That's probably true. That entered the trucking space. Since that time, though, our state law enforcement has been enforcing English language proficiency at roadside when they inspect trucks. And since August of last year, they've put over about 385 people out of service for failing English language proficiency. In September of last year, due to a partnership that we have with ALEA and the conversations we've had with the governor's office, they did start doing collaboration with ICE. State law enforcement cannot enforce immigration law and immigration enforcement unless the federal government changes that. They can partner, but they can't be the enforcement arm. There's a famous Supreme Court case on that, and that obviously is something that gets a lot of media. Since September, or really October of last year, 185, it's probably 200 today. That number was of last week. Individuals have been detained by ICE that were driving commercial trucks on Alabama roads that were here illegally. Those numbers are troubling. Obviously, that's a huge highway safety concern. It's a huge fairness in our industry and the supply chain concern. And so, in that regard, we have a bill, SB 242, that passed out of the Senate committee yesterday, or excuse me, Wednesday, that gives further teeth to law enforcement to enforce several of provisions for foreign drivers and for enforcing English language proficiency. It codifies federal law on both instances and has increased fines and penalties, including impoundment of the vehicle. So it's not new law. I mean, it's codifying in state law what has been the law in the federal books for a long time for foreign drivers and for English language proficiency. But it does give them a tool for enforcement. So that's our main issue we've been working on. The other thing I would mention as a priority is lawsuit abuse reform. Our industry is a poster child for plaintiffs' lawyers. You see the billboards, you see the ads, but this problem affects everybody in the Alabama economy. And there was a recent insurance report that came out of the Department of Insurance that paints the picture of why insurance rates are going up. One of those major factors is the not the number of claims for civil litigation, but the amount of those claims is up 45% over a 5-year period. You can imagine that. So we've had a number of nuclear verdicts in Alabama. Mercedes parent company, Daimler, they manufacture Western Star and Freightliner trucks. I mean, Mercedes is one of our largest manufacturers in the state. In 2024, there was a nuclear verdict in Clark County, Alabama, $140 million on a truck rollover case. It was not a personal injury lawsuit. It was a products liability lawsuit against the manufacturer. Very little article about that, but it was one of the largest verdicts in Alabama history. It got settled after the verdict for an undisclosed amount. But it just goes to show you that there are nuclear verdicts that happen in our state. They happen in our backyard. And that was a very complex product liability case against one of Alabama's largest employers. And it's a major problem that affects our entire industry. I'm very proud that Alabama Trucking, along with BCA and many other industry groups, have been part of launching Alabamians for Legal Reform, which is a new group that's fully focused on that. I hope this is an effort that complements work that you do, even if it's not something that you're on the tip of the spear of. But certainly, I know your members are subjected to frivolous litigation, and it affects their ability to grow. It affects their ability to thrive in their community and create jobs. So that's another issue that I could speak on for a long time. I believe we're going to make tremendous progress in that space over a long period of time with Alabamians for Legal Reform being the tip of the spear. Harrison Proctor was just announced as the executive director of that organization, and we're extremely proud to support it. Lastly, and I'll close and I'll get out of the way. I think 15 minutes is enough for me. I know workforce development is a priority for everyone. It's a buzzword. I believe it's also a really messy, noisy space that I can speak to in trucking, have struggled to find a way to be effective in to meet the needs of our members. We have some barriers to entry for workforce development that are very unique to trucking that I won't get into. So we've got a number of challenges that we have to confront. Part of our challenge, which I think y'all can relate to, is taking ownership of our own problem, not running to the government and say, fix our problem, like the industry itself coming together and saying, we are going to create our own destiny when it comes to creating career paths and really showcasing what we have to offer for Alabamians to go get a great job. I'd point you to two things that I think might be helpful. One was an effort called My Trucking Future, which is our workforce campaign. You can go to that website. I think you might be inspired by some of the the visuals, some of the storytelling, because what I have found in this space that I hope might be helpful to you is that the number one thing in workforce development is authenticity and storytelling of people who are doing those jobs. I believe in business and trucking and chambers and economic development. We get in the data, we get into all these numbers we throw out, we get into, and some of that stuff's important behind the curtain. But when it comes to promoting our industry, when it comes to promoting our community, people relate to stories. So if you go to My Trucking Future, you can find some testimonials there that are real Alabamians and real jobs in our industry telling real stories. And it might inspire you to think about ways that you humanize your industry. The plaintiffs' lawyers for us, they objectify us. They talk about, are you scared of trucks? They're killing machines. Our job is to humanize our industry and put forward these amazing people that I get to spend time with all the time, and tell their stories to people who look like them, who think, oh, I could drive a truck like she does. And so we've got some amazing stories we tell there. Also, finding fun ways to humanize your industry. We have a truck driver appreciation week in September every year, and last year we rolled out nationally a song that we had that really Josh Vaughn, who many of you know, helped create, called Highway Dreaming. And it was written by Alabama songwriters, produced by Sweet Tea Trio, which is an Alabama group, recorded at Cypress Moon Studios in Muscle Shoals, which is a famous studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, with Alabama musicians as well. And you can go to highwaydreaming.com. It's a great song. You can listen to it on Apple Music, on Spotify, on Amazon Music. And the music video has a real truck driver from one of our companies. My daughter makes a cameo in it. His family's in it. Jeremy Johnson, he drives for PS Logistics. And it's just a great video. And it's a fun way for us to try to humanize in a creative way and promote our industry and connect to kind of the heartbeat of trucking. And so, again, that might be an inspiration for y'all as you're thinking of creative ways to promote your community, to humanize, and tell a story. So I always follow Kyle. I see him here, and they have some really creative work that they do and how they promote their community. So I think it's always fun to look at what other people doing in that space and maybe get an inspiration from it. So with that page, I'll close. I'd love to answer any questions, but I know you got a good agenda with the BCA team coming up. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was good enough for a Friday morning.
Thank you, Mark. It was perfect, spot on. And I think that and we just appreciate your continued partnership with our organizations. I'm going to open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions for Mark, Kyle.
Not as much of a question as a comment. So to his point about the legal reform stuff, we have already kind of had some conversations with Harrison about coming and talking to our public affairs group once session's over about those efforts, statewide. So I would encourage anybody, Harrison's willing to come out and talk about the things that they're looking at through that effort and sharing that with the membership.
Great, perfect. Um, we will be sure to share Harrison's contact information um, because he is willing to come out. I know many of you are looking for speakers, particularly with your GA group, and as you start thinking about your 2027, we're not even halfway done with 26 yet, but thinking about the 2027 session and your public policy agendas and things like that, it'd be great to get ahead of that.
And
Perfect.
Paige, and you can also go to alabamiansforlegalreform.com and more details about Harrison's background, but also the organization. And so
Yeah,
there's some good resources there.
that's perfect. We will include that connection, that website. Carla, if you don't mind, make note of that. We'll make sure we put that in the follow-up to the call as well. Any other comments or questions for Mark?
I'll make one last, if you don't mind. I
Oh,
know many
please.
of you are directly involved or indirectly involved in economic development in your community. What I'd like to share with you is that no matter where you live, you have some fantastic fleets that are small, medium, and potentially even large that call your community home, that employ a lot of people there. And as you have economic development activity that affects trucking, especially on the manufacturing, supply chain space, not to be anti-competitive, but think about, creative ways how those companies could plug in to make sure they have a chance to be a part of that business. And because That's something that we're going to have a renewed focus on because it has been such a difficult time. And, we believe in growing Alabama, but when we have those, in Monroeville, Alabama, when there's a project there, we need to make sure Monroeville, companies are the ones benefiting from that and not people from Oklahoma. We can pick on, or Indiana. Let's pick on Indiana since they won the national championship. Fleets from Indiana. I mean, we have a lot of companies that do business in Indiana, but I'd rather our guys, and girls get that work. So think about that. Keep that in the corner of your mind. And if you see an opportunity for us to plug in or get our members to plug in that space, I would appreciate it. So that's it.
That's great, Mark. Growing up, I got to give a plug, hometown. Growing up in Barber County, Benny Whitehead Trucking and Boyd Brothers, and they were just Cooper Transportation. They were all just part of the fabric of our community. And I grew up with people that worked there, and their dads had driven for years, and so there are a part of the economic engine. And like you said, every community has those.
And they don't make a Dempsey Boyd and Mr.
They don't
Whitehead
make it.
anymore. They don't make them like they made them. So,
No, he was
yep.
he was cut from a different cloth.
Thank
So
you.
thank you, Mark. We appreciate you so much. The great partnership. And I will just put a plug in. I hope Mark doesn't mind. But I know a couple of you on this call, and I know some others have had Mark come and speak to your membership about trucking and what's happening, things like that. Another great opportunity for a luncheon speaker, things like that. So if you have any other questions, Mark is always available to you as a resource as well. And we just, again, appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I think Scott drew the short straw for the week. And so, Scott, tell us what happened at the State House this week.
Oh, not much.
Not much.
And actually, before I get going, and Mark may be gone now, but we'll plug them a little bit further on community engagement and how y'all humanize folks. I am the proud holder of the Truck Transportation Merit Badge as a Boy Scout, and know that the chambers are fabrics of your community. That is a real merit badge, but it does get your local communities and your youth actually engaged in learning more about that industry. That is so important.
Scott, I feel like the dumbest guy ever for two reasons. One, because I work in trucking and I don't know about this. And two, I'm an Eagle Scout and I don't know about this. So you have now given me some homework on a Friday, and I feel
you got some
I'm
homework.
admitting my ignorance. Okay.
I was literally sitting here texting my Eagle Scout husband. Did you know there was a truck?
I'm all over it. Thank you, Scott. I have work to do. All right. Thanks.
And my Eagle Scout plaque is right there. If we're plugging ourselves here. But there you go. But so anyway, know all of you have scout troops in your communities. Great way to become more familiar from a young age with that industry. So when I say there was not much happening at the State House this week, I'm only halfway being facetious. Of course, you may have heard by now about several parts of the Affordability Protection Plan, principally a potential bill or a bill to potentially restructure how the Public Service Commission is put together. Paige was a witness and testified on this bill and did a fabulous job on behalf of the chambers. This bill, one of the bills in the package moves the Public Service Commission from a statewide elected position to an appointed position by the governor. I guess for the two associate members, the Speaker of the House, in consultation with Minority Leader, gives the governor a list of 3 names to choose from. Same thing on the Senate side, the pro tem, with collaboration of the Senate Minority Leader. This helps provide stability for business. Part of the bill makes it a requirement that these folks have experience in regulatory bodies, so that you're not just a good vote getter who now all of a sudden is responsible for regulating electric utilities. There's been a lot of talk about this and will continue to be about taking away my right to vote and that sort of thing. I'll tell you a little homework I did this morning. shows that out of the last 9 elections, Democrats did not field a candidate for 6 of them for PSC. And then on the Republican side, only about 8% of the electorate voted for the winner of the Public Service Commission. So, we're really not participating in this election process. But more to come on that. There will be a lot more news there, and we'll be hearing a lot more about that over time. But that's one part of this package. The other two parts of it are about data centers. So we know data centers eat up a whole bunch of electricity, and they require the ratepayers right now to really put them together. So if you think about when there's additional power generated, the cost of fuel, when you think about the poles and the wires and transmission and everything that goes in to getting electricity to a giant, what used to be a giant field, and now running all those data centers and computers, all of that now must be paid for by the data center. That had not been the case previously, but when drafting those contracts now, that's a requirement. So that bill has moved out of the House committee. An identical bill has moved out of Senate committee. We anticipate that moving through without any hiccups, and the body's concurring there. The third part of that package involves tax incentives for data centers. Currently, we are way ahead of most other states, allowing for a 30-year maximum on incentives. If you spend, I think, 200 million in 10 years, 400 million in 20 years, we're reining that back in to a 20-year maximum. So just keeps us in line with other states. It also does not allow for sales tax abatement in perpetuity. Once the data center comes online, any sales tax abatement will then go towards the general fund. So that is the Affordability Protection Plan. Of course, you'll hear a lot more about that PSC bill in coming weeks. Let's see. There's a Sound Science Bill, Senate Bill 71. I think Caroline talked about this a couple weeks ago. The purpose of this bill is to make sure that the regulatory bodies are using fundamental, generally accepted scientific practice in coming up with regulations. So, if somebody gets excited about chemtrails flying over the sky, we can't automatically say, all right, well, that's probably raining poison on us, therefore we can't fly airplanes anymore. Or it can't be based on suspicion. Everything has to be grounded in scientific practice for ADEM to make any regulatory decision on it. It brings us pretty much mirroring federal law, and just makes it again so that it's a consistent, scientifically sound regulatory decision. We've talked about the speaker's CTE package. We're expecting that to come out in early March. So here probably about 2 more weeks. And then my last bullet is on Senate Bill 91 that I know we're all concerned about. It has not seen any movement since its filing. So that is still in the same place. So there has been a whole bunch of state government stuff going on this week. That's why I say only halfway facetiously, not much going on. There's been some hubbub about some stuff, but there's been just a whole lot of crime and education and bills for individual senators and districts, but less on the overall. So I'm glad to have had Mark today to keep me from filibustering too long with what's otherwise a fairly brief update, but glad to answer any questions. Paige.
Scott, just because we have people that are not always on all of our calls, can you just touch briefly on SB 91?
Sure. So Senate Bill 90, and boy, y'all are probably going to correct me on this, knowing the weeds of being a little more in the weeds. But this bill takes us from it impacts multi-county chambers, I guess is the best way to put it. And boy, Paige, I may have to punt to one of y'all. I know I'm watching and I know 30,000 feet, but I may need one of y'all to dive in a little better. I know talked to Sam about it.
Um, is this the one that from for
This
economic
is
development
Nelson's bill on
from
economic
Melson's
development.
built? Okay, yeah. Um, so Sam, it basically allows local municipalities to remove funding from economic development organizations, things like that. Um, so it was initially in the last year, I believe, last year maybe it was introduced as a or was intended or going to be introduced as local legislation, but it's now a statewide bill. So I just wanted to make sure because I didn't have my notes in front of me. So SB 91 is from Melson in the Shoals area, and it has not gained any momentum from, yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that that was the one.
That's the one. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so we are day 13, is that or 12?
We have completed day 12. So on Tuesday, we'll be on day 13. We're expecting a 2-day week next week. So we'll be almost to halftime.
Very good. Um, so with that, does anyone have any questions for Scott, or Mark is still on the call as well? Or Caroline is here as well? All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. On a Friday morning. We appreciate you. Appreciate Scott, Caroline, Tim, and the entire team on trying to keep us up to date on what's happening at the State House, so we don't have to be there every day as they are. Mark, again, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate you and what you're doing for a very important part of our economy, state, federally, and particularly at the local level. Um, with that, I would again say thank you for those who were at Chamber Day at the Capitol. I'll also say really quickly that ELC, Executive Leadership Conference registration will open in the coming day, possibly today, probably today. Um, it is going to be in Huntsville, April 28th through 30th. Let me just tell you, you want to be there. We are so excited about our keynote. She is dynamic, incredible, and one of my favorites. And we're going to tease that again for just a little while longer. But just know, mark your calendars, April 28th through 30th to be there. We have Talk About It Tuesday coming up in a week from Tuesday. And then for those of you that are up in the northwest part of the state, our regional roundtable will be in Fort Payne next Friday. I'd love to see all of you there. I'll be there with bells on, and hope that you'll be able to join us. Don't forget, as I mentioned in the email to many of you, that this is intended for all of your staff, particularly if you have new staff, to be there as well. So with that, Happy Valentine's Eve for those of you who celebrate. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.